welcome back to another episode of Shots. We've got the whole team here. Sans Mike. Sorry, Mike. We need a fifth Mike. Yeah, friends of the podcast, Lindsay and Erica, back for another round with Al and I.
So we had fun in Boston.
Oh, blast.
Yeah, so that was a good episode too. So
absolutely. Yeah, we wanted to get the crew together. So Greencastle right now doing an HR survey, right? Not for any negative reason. Just kind of looking to gain some transparency about things that we do well as a company, things we do poorly as a company, things we can improve on, things we need to sustain. For me, that's a first, right? In my professional career, I've never been a part of an organization that has like the stomach to be like told where they're falling short. So it's really cool to see. Kind of just brought up the idea of like, maybe let's air some of the good cultures we've been a part of in the past, maybe some of the bad ones, see if any of them really resonate with the audience. So.
Shake out some dirty laundry.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know. Does anyone want to start? Anyone willing to be brave?
Can I just interject real quick before we begin, because you brought up Boston. Last time there were some technical difficulties, so hopefully we make it through the whole episode this time.
We're in the studio now, so I think we're good. We were in Boston. We were just kind of traveling with our equipment, and we were just like plugging things in, realizing we don't have everything. And before we knew it, camera stopped.
We didn't have visual.
It's a good learning experience for any would-be podcasters out there.
Absolutely.
Get out there, make a bunch of mistakes. That's how you learn. So
you definitely learn from mistakes for sure.
So bringing it all back around, since you just opened up the conversation to mistakes, I think an important part of culture is building the culture so that you feel comfortable making mistakes, but then learning from those mistakes, and not hiding anything. But
absolutely true.
I think a lot of organizations really struggle with that. It's like, I mean, honestly, it's kind of like part of what we do. I feel like as a consulting company is go in and help organizations kind of quietly fix things that aren't going well. It's sometimes hard for companies to like just admit like, hey, we don't have this figured out at the moment.
It's hard for them to admit that they have issues or they have failings. I think it's good to have feedback from the people, especially from leadership. I think leadership needs feedback. I think it's good that leadership gets feedback for themselves as well. I think that helps make sure that you're building a good culture and that everyone's on the same page. I think that's a good thing. I think that's what I really enjoy that we do here at Greencastle is that we do have all these different surveys and we are checking in on people. And Lindsay, you're awesome at making sure we're getting everything all squared away. We have all our meetings together. We have touch points constantly, which is really good. So you're not like lost, I think that's a good part of these type of things, surveys and stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think it's interesting because you all talked about culture and none of you said like, well, it's because we have a bar or it's because we have like a really cool space. And I think a lot of companies think that that's culture. Like, oh, I've got a pool table or I've got a shuffleboard table or a nap pod. Like, it's culture, right?
Yeah.
But culture is exactly what we're talking about. It's the surveys. It's the making sure that your people are okay. It's making sure that there's transparency and people are comfortable speaking up and don't feel like they're psychologically threatened in any way, right?
Yeah, I think it's like a balance. Everyone, I don't think anyone's under the disillusion, right? Like most companies, most businesses exist to make a profit. It's, how can you pursue that while also not making life like actively worse for your employees? Like, can you create an environment where folks come in and I think it's kind of cliche to like refer to your workforce as like a family. I think most people prefer their actual family. There's some cases where that's not, but like, the reality is like work is work. It's not always fun, but can you make it a space where, you can get in there and feel like, okay, hey, I'm happy with the team I'm working with, and I'm kind of like proud of the organization that I represent. I think we do a good job of that here at Greencastle for the most part.
I agree with that. I would put a challenge out to anybody that's out here who's listening to this. If you're in a workplace and you're not doing this, ask yourself, why aren't you doing this, and how are things going? So I think that's a good look in general. So that's why we're having this conversation now.
Yeah.
I'll be brave. I'm going to air one of my, we can like bleep out if I accidentally say the company's name. So when I got out of the Army, circa, I'm going to date myself, 2019. So if anyone wants to do the math. I took a contracting position. I was teaching ROTC, but like not as an actual uniformed instructor. So the company that I was working for, basically every, I don't know, 2 or 3 years would change its name and like reincorporate. And in doing so, it would just like wipe out accrued benefits for its employees. So like we were contractors, you're not exactly like, oh man, like I have great benefits when you're like a government contractor. I totally get that. But I was like 9 months into my position, and then my PTO just got like wiped out down to zero because everything you accrued didn't apply at the new company. That was all the same employees and the same owners, but you just reincorporated. And the response was just kind of like, yeah, hey, that's welcome to government contracting, folks. So just kind of like it's funny, I've heard Joe kind of talk about, Joe Crandall, our CEO, like a historical culture here at Greencastle where people kind of like openly acknowledge that like, hey, you're not going to be here a long time. So like this is a jumping off point. And I think that mindset kind of is pervasive in the organization I was just referring to. And that's like when you really run into a lot of problems culture-wise. Is like when you don't create an organization where people can set themselves up to be there for a career. If you're not building your organization on that, I think that's when you really run into some of the true horror stories.
And if you're not building an organization with the people in mind, that's also a problem. I feel like, so were they constantly just rebranding?
Yeah, whole new logo, whole new name, but exact same.
Confusing.
So like I literally showed up, on one day and I worked for company A, and then the next day like they mailed me a new badge. It said company B. I logged my time on the same software, same HR person, same name, cutting my check, just the actual company.
Wow.
We joke about like Blue Castle and Red Castle and all the other color castles. Like that's literally what would happen. Is they pick a new color and a new noun and like combine them, and here's our
Dang.
Sounds like they need some change management around
Honestly,
that. So check us out.
Yeah.
Shameless plug.
Yeah, right. Yeah, hey, if you're in the, you know who you are.
I will say, being a contractor, I've had a really bad experience. So I was working for a company. I'm not going to say when it was.
Everyone runs to her LinkedIn right now. And they're like, who is this?
And I was a contractor at the time, initially, before I was offered full-time employment. And my boss went on vacation, and she sent me a message and said, I'm going to need you to fire another contractor for me while I'm on vacation.
Goodness.
And she's like, I'll be on the line, but I can't say anything. So you're going to take this guy into the room and you're going to fire him. Wow. And I, being new there, I was like, okay,
Dang.
whatever you need. Do you need a blood sample too? Or like, I was like, sure, sounds good. Wow. So I take this guy into the room, and I was like, not prepared, obviously. And I'm like, hey, you're not going to work here anymore, essentially. Wow. And she was on the phone, and she was at the beach, and all you could hear were seagulls in the background as I was firing this other contractor, as a contractor myself. Oh my God. And needless to say, she got fired eventually.
Dang,
but
savage.
I was like, this is interesting, wild, right? Like, dang. I mean, culture starts at the top and with leadership, and oftentimes when you have not a strong leader, things like that happen. But that was a rough time.
That's crazy.
Amazing.
I do have a story. So I worked for a company before I went back to school to get my bachelor's degree, and I won't say the name of the company, but they thought the internet was a fad, so they kept pushing things away. So I was in Delaware at the time, and so DART is the bus company down there. DART wanted to give them $10,000 a month to have a banner on their website. And they turned it down because it's like, the web, that's not going to be a thing. I'm like, are you serious right now? And like, that's the leadership, And so I'm like, I can't work here. I can't work here if you don't see. Even when I went in, I took them from reel to reel editing, which is like VHS, large tapes that they send out to the TV companies, to digital editing on Premiere. And they were excited about that, very hesitant about it at first, but I kind of almost like a change manager. You know, I moved that system into their system. It was like, hey, we need to start doing this. This is going to expedite the process. Very hesitant, very, very didn't want to do it, but got on board. They did it finally. But then everything else around technology just wasn't pushing forward. And I'm like, you guys are going to just like, and of course the company's not in existence anymore. You know, they just got beat out. But it was one of those lessons to me. And it was just like, you know what, I need to leave and go get some more education, because I also felt like I was being kind of dumbed down in the situation because the lack of technology and the lack of progression. You know, so companies that don't progress or don't evolve, the people in those businesses are also going to de-evolve as well. So if you're a really skilled person and you're working in a position that's like just dumbing you down, you probably need to leave. You probably need to move on before you lose your skill set and you lose your integrity. You know, that's kind of what I did, you know, in that position.
Yeah, that's tough. I mean, I commend you for that, because I feel like it can be really difficult. It's terrifying, like switching jobs. At least for me, it was. You know, like I had like a nice, comfy, you know, federal job. You know, I could have just probably coasted to a sweet pension. But like, you know, you do feel like sometimes where you're just, hey, like I'm either not like working to the potential that I have in my mind, or like I genuinely feel like my skills are regressing, like you said.
Yeah.
But like making that jump is scary, but it's something that I feel like a lot of people probably need to hear and need to do.
Yeah.
You know, just kind of like double down and bet on yourself. Be like, hey, you know.
Honestly, yeah, that's the best. If you can bet on yourself and have the confidence and the fortitude to shift gears, you know, because it's scary, you know, to change careers almost, or to leave a position that you had money in, now you don't, and now you're like, oh wow, am I gonna, you know, get back on this horse again? You know, it's a little difficult. And when I left, I just had my GI Bill to kind of sustain me for a little while, but then that was running out because I spent it on my first time going into school to get my associate's degree. So I only had a limited amount of time to use my GI Bill, which I was grateful for. So I was thankful for the service. But, you know, I was kind of racing against time. I need to get things, you know, positioned. And then I started running my own business, and I started making money from that point on. And so I never looked back after that until Greencastle came along. so it works out. It's just, you just have to have the confidence. You have to have the you know, the fortitude to push through it. Yeah. Yeah.
And the right environment, right? Like
Absolutely.
we're talking about culture, right?
Yeah.
Having a supportive culture. Somebody mentioned like having those tough conversations, right? Like that's part of the culture too, and having that transparency and radical candor, as they say. You know, I think that makes or breaks a culture too, that you can have those as a leader, have like, you know, very forthcoming conversations with your subordinates and say like, hey, like this isn't very good, or like, hey, you did a great job. I think that creates a healthy culture too, right? So
Absolutely does, yeah.
I'm shocked. Four veterans around a table. No one has brought up a military story.
There's just too many. People have heard it before.
Yeah. Not that. Yeah, I have a good one actually. Shockingly,
I may have one too.
Yeah. My first unit in the Army was a testing brigade. So we were an armored brigade that like tested new equipment for the Army. So like a lot of like communication stuff, but it meant that we just basically lived in the New Mexico deserts for like months on end in the year, because we had to like be in a pseudo austere environment to actually like test it. So my brigade commander like just made it a point after like a handful of these. So like, you know, over the course of 18 months, I think I lived in the field for like 6 of them. Which is a lot.
Yeah.
When you're not in like a deployed environment. But my brigade commander just kind of was like, yeah, I'm tired of like this lower standard of living. So he took brigade funds and invested them to like buy out these gyms in a Connex that would like get towed along with all our tanks. And whenever we would like set up and be in a location for more than like 48 hours, he had like this whole gym unfolded in the middle of the desert for us, like squat racks and all these weights. So like it gave you like a modicum of like normalcy in what can otherwise be just like mind numbing, like making sure those sand dunes don't move.
Right.
So I think he's General Maz now, but you know, kudos to you, General Maz, if you're out there listening. Thanks for making my life suck less. So.
That was a forward thinking situation. I've been out in, like, I was in Texas, so I've been out in those desert situations where you're out, you got just sick ups everywhere, and everybody's like, you know, doing their own thing. And, you know, I was 52 Delta, power generator, or power generation. My little story is a little different because it wasn't that I actually had to step up, because as a 52 Delta power generation at what used to be Fort Hood, I was the only generator mechanic in HHC First Cav Division. So it was me. I was the guy. I was the task guy. So when we went out to the desert to do some setups, I'd never done setups before. In practice on paper, but never really fully did a setup. So I had to learn from scratch. And I reached out to a bunch of people who had my MOS that were like staff sergeants. You know, I reached out to them and was like, hey, how do you do this? What do you do? It's like, I don't know. I've never done it. I was like, what do you do? And then most of them were like small wheel vehicle mechanics and stuff like that, which I also ended up doing that, and fuel handling and stuff like that. But because there's not a real application for generators every day, you know. But, you know, I was always out there, you know, checking them every single day, though, you know, regardless, even though they weren't moving. Yeah. So I had to create a wiring diagram, a schematic for setting up every single one of their camps, because there weren't any. And I thought there needed to be something, because somebody coming in behind me is not going to know how to do this. You know, and the last thing I want to do is just like leave a station and just be like, all right, I'm done here. And then nobody knows what I did. So I left all these schematics and all these diagrams, and drew everything up and say, this is how much these guys need because they pull this much power, all that stuff, and set it up. And as a result of that, it made my life easier, because now I had something set that I knew needed, you know, that I could do, and it was easily repeated. Even if somebody came up and said, hey, we have a new setup, you could take any one of these schematics and kind of repurpose it for anything new also. But it just blew my mind that there was not an infrastructure for that when I first got there, and that I literally spent days and days reading manuals and everything just to figure out what I had to do, which was like, there just wasn't leadership for it. So when there's not a leadership position, you need to be the leader. And I think that's the moral of that story. You need to be the one that steps up for that kind of situation. So
I see what you did there.
Yeah.
Like, look at how awesome I am.
I just switched it up.
Brought it full circle. I love it.
Full circle. Yeah. Back to the leadership stuff.
I actually have a positive story I want to highlight, because as we all know, there's plenty of negative ones. But the positive is when you find a leader who's really good. It's like really, really good. So we all know that getting out of the military is like a weird conversation to have, because oftentimes they're like, you're getting out? Why? Yeah. Like, what? This is the best thing in the world. Why would you ever want to pursue freedom? No offense to all the military people out there, but and talking about like career progression and like where you're going to move. And I initially started as a 25 Alpha, so a signal officer. And I talked to my battalion commander about, you know, he set up these proactive meetings about, you know, where do you want to go with your career in the military? And like, I was super honest with him, like, I'm not staying in for 20 years, but this is what I think I want to do. Like these are my skills outside. I do marketing. And he was like, oh, have you ever thought about like public affairs or, and I was like, no. And he's like, we love having you here. And I think you're a great officer, but like you'd be so good at that. And like, I thought that was such a cool conversation to have, that like they would have to fill that role, and they did have to end up filling that role, but he saw something better for me and wanted to get me there. And it wasn't like a conversation of like, oh, you don't want to stay with an infantry battalion and sleep out in the field all the time? No. You know, he was like, yeah, I think you should definitely do that. Like, that would be awesome. And he supported me fully in doing that. And his whole thing was be 1% better every day. He was a CrossFitter.
That's cool.
She said it, not me.
They all have to, they all call it out.
Did you say that too? Yeah. It's great because it's a very small, measurable thing that you can do every day, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, he was really cool. So shout out to Colonel Furman. If he's listening, that would be awesome. Wow. Love that guy.
I feel like that's a really good indicator. What's it? A beige flag? Is that what they say now?
It is a beige flag.
Beige flag.
That's right.
If you're in an organization that like allows you to move internally, like you know, or you have a leader that is like, hey, I like you, you're a great worker. It's going to negatively affect me to not have you on my team, but this is a better fit for you. That is like, cling to that for dear life. Those are rare, I think, at least in my experience. Most people are just, they're worried, and I understandably so, right? You're worried about making your little foxhole as pleasant as possible. Yeah. I'm rolling out a lot of military analogies right now. I got to dial it back. But yeah, if you find I'm a living example of that here at Greencastle, right? You're brought in here to be a consultant, and great opportunity, great learning experience for me, but not what I wanted to do long term. And this is an organization that, when it's right for the organization and the person, they're willing to, take a chance on someone.
That is a question I had for you. Why did you choose to come to marketing?
Yeah, this is good. We're going to relive my interview right now. So.
Let's do it. But this time with lights and cameras.
Yes, in 4K. I said, prior to this, my job, I was like a recruiter for Army ROTC programs. And not that I have some big affinity for getting college students to sign away 4 years of their life, but I truly do believe there were benefits to my military service that have long-standing impacts on how my life is going to play out. And being able to kind of share that story with younger versions of me. Was just really, really cool and impactful for me. Something I really enjoyed. So when the position opened up here at Greencastle, I kind of saw a lot of similarities in that. Obviously we're first and foremost selling consulting services, but being able to kind of highlight the work that our team does, and share that with people and show them that value. I just really enjoy that storytelling side of it. And then I guess the real undercurrent for me, again, we are a consulting company first, but we are a consulting company staffed exclusively by veterans. So knowing that, hey, if I'm good at my job and I effectively do this storytelling and it translates to future business, that's, 100 or so veterans right now that are continuing to, have their paycheck clear. That's, maybe 10 years down the road, 150, 200 veterans that are a part of this organization that are able to continue to be gainfully employed. And kind of have that life you're looking for when you are leaving the Army or the, whatever branch of service it is. But I don't know, not to get all sentimental about it. I kind of
amazing.
I like it.
And that's how he got the job.
Yeah. Team player. I love it.
Yeah.
That's
so
cool.
I kind of want to talk about when things go wrong, right? Or when you do have to have tough conversations or people need to be let go or something like that, right? So I was laid off of my first ever marketing job, and I was laid off by phone. They didn't afford me the opportunity to come into the office. I had my stuff there. The owner of the company that is now closed, so it doesn't matter if you go look for it, it's not there. But she called me on the phone and she was like, just hand your stuff to one of the girls that live around you, but we're laying you off. And so I feel like bringing it back to culture is having that professional courtesy to be able to have a conversation that's tough like that with people and know that that's a human on the other end, regardless if it's lack of performance or whatever it is, the company's not doing well financially and you need to lay people off. I think having those conversations in a way that respects the person is really important and part of the culture too, right?
I think you owe that as a leader, or even not, if you're not in a leadership position, you owe that to the other person on the end of that message, but to yourself as well. Just trying to get 1% better every day. It's hard sometimes, but if you put in the hard work, you're also going to benefit from it later.
No, totally that's
agree.
Absolutely true. Wow. That's sad. Sorry about that.
I'm here now.
So, it's like the old breakup over text.
I know, honestly.
Exactly.
So, okay, all right. So which one's better, over the phone or at the beach with the seagulls in the background?
Yes.
Yikes.
I know you have to be on both sides of that.
Yeah.
Wow, that's wild.
It is. I do think you really nailed it. If you're viewing your teammates as human beings, it can be really. I understand, right? At the end of the day, this pays my bills. If I get laid off, that impacts my ability to pay for my home. So there is an emotional response to if you feel like your job is in jeopardy, whether it's company-wide layoffs or performance related, but it is just so important to I know it's cheesy. We like say assume positive intent, but like go into it and we're like, yeah, hey, that is a human being on the other side of this. I'm not doing this because I dislike them personally.
Right.
Like this may just be, the reality of the situation, but I still need to treat them with dignity and respect. I think it's easier said than done, but
Yeah.
thankfully I'm not firing anybody anytime soon.
He's like, this is why I gathered you all in here.
Yeah, just like me and my 3 burner accounts on Instagram.
Friends of the podcast are fired.
Yeah,
This is our,
Yeah.
We only made it 2 episodes.
yeah. You're good. You guys are.
When he
Actually,
didn't
I should clarify. You guys have been upgraded to recurring guests. So,
Oh.
Yes. Yes.
Best friends of the podcast.
Best friends.
of the
Best friends.
Some say.
Wow.
Yeah.
Maybe the audio or the
Started
visual
from the
state.
bottom.
Former.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, Lindsay holds a lot of hats. Former host.
Yeah.
Now
Yeah.
recurring guest.
Also, your boss.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
there's
Also
that.
my boss. Also my boss.
She actually.
Don't forget that one.
She holds the keys to the podcast.
It's
so
true.
like,
Yeah. Yeah.
so
Best friend.
Yeah.
of the
Yeah.
podcast.
There we go. Best friend. Yeah. Sorry, Erica.
Sit in the corner.
no. It's great. I feel like before, and like I said, I've been running a business for. I'm not gonna date myself, but like.
Well, you already did. I didn't want
Yeah.
to interrupt your story, but when you started talking about VHS tapes, I was like, oh,
Oh yeah.
there it is.
That takes you
Rewind.
back. Yeah.
Yeah.
But before that, I was just working for myself, so I didn't have a corporate entity that I was working through. I was working with corporations, working with businesses. So I was always on the outside looking in, and I wouldn't see all the nuances, But working here at Greencastle, I feel like, a little spoiled, I think, because like I see other companies and I see how we operate, and I really love the structure that we have here. I think it's really strong. I like the adult rules. I like how we, we're chill, we're easy with each other. As long as you're getting stuff done, nobody needs to, have it out with you. And I enjoy that. Other positions that I've seen and other places that I've worked around, I see failures and easy things that could just be a conversation to fix. And I feel like we have a lot of conversations. I feel like we have a lot of touch points, and I think that's awesome as far as like confidence in a person, especially if you're an employee, having confidence in your leadership and having the ability to get your job, your work done and know what needs to be done.
Yeah, I think not having that micromanaging is a big thing, right?
Yeah,
That's,
yeah.
I think that kind of stuff is what destroys a good culture. Is,
Absolutely.
when you have a leader who doesn't trust you or what you do, that I think is what kind of, when you work for yourself, you don't have to worry about that.
Yeah.
When you enter into another place and you, like you're saying, like people not trusting their employees, like that's a big deal. That can really destroy culture. So
Yeah.
Anyone got any parting shots?
No.
No.
You got any hot takes? You usually have a hot take.
I don't really have. I mean, I have like I guess one that like comes to mind. My one of my I guess I'll call him an uncle-in-law. I don't know how to make through. Anyway, we talk a lot about. He's a CMO at a software company, and he has this thing we talked about managing like workforces and culture. I don't know how it came up, but he had this like line, and it's just like cuts right through my head all the time, is that he said the biggest thing was he can never hire or fire people fast enough. Like that has like been his like single thread for like maintaining an effective team. It's like, hey, when like he knows he has a vacancy, it's very difficult to like fill it as quickly as he wants to. But that's also like kind of to your point, is like recognizing when someone's not a good fit for a role. It's again, it's not like ruthless, like I need to get this person fired and ruin their life. It's just like, hey, for this organization, this person is not the right fit. And I think like that level of like analysis and just like commitment to something is what allows you to maintain that culture and keep it headed in the right direction, because it's very easy to lose it when like I think especially like take a look at like us again. I'm not trying to just self-promote, it's just we all work here. Like we only hire veterans, right? So like we've naturally limited our talent pool to this like very small subset of the workforce. So it can be difficult when you're like, well, I have somebody who's trained and they're a veteran, how hard is it going to be for me to find someone who can fill this role? But like, if they're genuinely not a good fit, like for the organization or for the client or, you know, for the marketing team, you know, I'll flip it on me, you know, you owe it to yourself, to your organization. Like, you only have yourself to blame if you allow that person to continue, you know, basically, you know, trying to square peg round hole into their into their role. So yeah.
That's cool.
Hire and fire. Can't do them fast enough. That's my hot take for the day. So
I like that. I like that.
That's
yeah.
a good one. Good. Yeah.
Speaking of comments, guys, if you like, leave a comment, join the conversation, because I think everyone out there has a story of some sort. It's good to leave your story out there on the comment section so we can join in and talk to you about it too. But yeah, this is a good conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It didn't suck.
No.
Well, we think that.
Yeah.
Set the bar already low.
Yeah, I
Setting
had
the
fun.
bar low. Yeah.
Yeah. So, well, Lindsay, Erica, thank you again, recurring guests, former host and boss of the marketing team. Anything for the listeners before we sign off?
1% better every day.
Here it is.
That's
There
a good one
is.
always. Yes.
Clip it.
Get 1% better every single day. Yeah.
All right.
There was somebody on one of our podcasts. He said his dad used to tell him, learn something every day, and then also teach something to someone every day. And I think that's good, because if you're learning something every day, you're growing. If you're teaching something, you know, you're also providing. So going to leave that out there.
There it is.
Pay it forward. Love it.
You guys like and comment.
Yep.
Make sure you check us out every Tuesday.
Yep.
All right.
All right. See you next time.
Bye.
Bye.